Defense Department personnel, both civilian and uniformed, have a new ethics code of conduct. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin writes the code comports with President Biden's efforts to restore trust in government. Roger Zakheim's director of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library Foundation and Institute. He's former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. Roger, thanks very much for coming on the program. Is it your sense this is a response to some event or events in particular, or is this just a statement, do you think, of the new administration's position?
Well, the fact that you're asking that question shows that it's not clear. And you talk to some people and they say, hey, this is just kind of the Biden administration outlook, and all agencies will at some point have guidance that reflects their, this standard of ethics. On the other hand, there are many who think that this is tied to January 6th and is specific to the military, and to make sure that this code of conduct is something that the entire Department of Defense and the military understand is a priority for the president and the secretary.
Did anything in this guidance jump out at you, Roger, either that was there or that struck you as interesting that it was not there?
Nothing in terms of what was not there. A lot of the ethics guidance needs to be continuity, what you'd expect the department to have in place prior to the Biden administration. So it's, to me, just a point of emphasis, not really departing from what's been expected in the past, but now demonstrating that this is a key priority for the secretary.
I'm grateful for you also pointing me to another priority of the secretary, and that is the development of the next national defense strategy. New guidance coming from the White House yesterday in that area. What do you see there, Roger?
Well, as you mentioned, the White House released the interim national security strategy, and it basically tells everybody where the continuity will be from the previous national defense strategy. As you mentioned, China is prominent in this document that the White House released yesterday. But specific to the Department of Defense, it really suggests that we're looking at flat or declining budgets, not because the document said so. That wouldn't be appropriate for a national security strategy document, but because there was language about getting rid of legacy defense systems and somehow focusing on technology as a means of dealing with the defense budget.
That idea is something that every branch is talking about. General Berger in the Marine Corps suggesting the other day a 15% potential cut in the civilian billets at the at the Marine Corps to pay for the way that he wants to modernize that force. The other forces all basically looking at the same thing. Should one be surprised that that is kind of the implied, if not expressed, intent of this interim guidance?
I don't think it's surprising, but it's the first indicator this is indeed what they plan to do. The key takeaway, or the key area of focus, I should say, is when the department makes those cuts, let's say from legacy systems, or example you point to in the Marine Corps civilians, what will happen with the savings? Will those savings result in somehow paying down the deficit, or will allow for reinvestment in the Department of Defense for modernization priorities? The latter would be the course that I'd recommend. I think most national security experts would say we must do. But if history or the past is precedent, what will likely happen is that those cuts that either the Marine Corps is finding in your case, or more generally the Department of Defense, if they go ahead and cut legacy systems, will not result in increased modernization dollars. In fact, it will just go to reducing the defense budget.
I note and appreciate the simplicity of this document, Roger. There are 4 elements in the table of contents: introduction, global security landscape, our national security priorities, and the conclusion. Do you see anything different in the two middle of those, the global security landscape, the national security priorities? Any major changes?
Well, I think the areas of cooperation they seek with Russia and China would be a departure, certainly, from the previous administration. They're trying, that is, the Biden administration is trying to kind of realize this balance of confrontation and holding the Chinese accountable for what they're doing on all fronts, in this case, security fronts, at the same time, looking for areas of cooperation. That's a shift. The other shift that's in there is on arms control and nuclear modernization. They are rightly looking to deal with arms control, not only with the Russians, but the Chinese too. At the same time, there is kind of speculation that the Biden administration would go deeper in arms control and in some ways be willing to give up our strategic deterrence.
I'll call on your expertise from the House Armed Services Committee tenure that you enjoyed. What should we expect to see manifest itself from this or other policy documents in any kind of policy from Congress?
Well, you'll see oversight. There will absolutely be a requirement, a request coming from the Armed Services Committees to the Department of Defense to explain what does this document mean. Just like we're having a conversation about what's the same and what's different, they're absolutely going to do that, and particularly the paragraphs that deal with the Department of Defense. It mentions legacy systems. Which legacy systems? As you know, those questions are critical as the Armed Services Committee developed the National Defense Authorization Act for this coming fiscal year.
Roger Zakheim, thanks very much as always.
Thanks for having me.